Thanks everyone for joining me. This is April with another episode from the Travel Collective. Today I'm excited to connect with Karl Wilder. And as all of you know who've been listening to the YouTube channel and podcast, I have a love of travel, exploring, and food. Food is just a big part of enjoying travel. So I'm excited to have Karl Karl with me today, a fellow, well, I can't say I'm a fellow German. I just have German roots. So Karl, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. I've been exploring this idea of travel. Is it something that we feel like we've always had that bug to go explore as a child? Is it something our parents kind of grew, nurtured in us, or did we discover it later in life?
I was born with it. I was born with a curiosity about the world. I used to read National Geographic when I was in kindergarten. There are these places, and I haven't been there. I'm in, wherever, New Orleans, Louisiana at the time. And I want to see the world. I want to go. I want to go. But what really sealed it for me was when I was, I don't know, about 11 years old. My Aunt Phyllis, who had never had the chance to travel, died the evening of her 50th birthday, just before her first trip, the trip she'd been waiting for her whole life. And it was like, I'm not waiting. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to die of a brain aneurysm at 50, wishing I had done this. And that was it. I was just every airfare sale, every opportunity, I was off.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I truly believe travel now. I mean, I grew up a little bit pre-internet, where we have all these things we can discover of ways to travel on a budget or maybe a work study program. I didn't have that opportunity, so I think people have that
Actually, you
opportunity.
probably did. If you'd been a good National Geographic reader, they had everything from work study to host families. You wrote a paper letter to the magazine, and they would connect you with people who wanted to host travelers or,
Oh,
anybody
wow.
in study. So, yeah, I did a lot of that when I was really young and National Geographic.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. So tell me about food tours. Where I mean, where did that start for you?
Well, food tours are a relatively new industry. They just began, to my knowledge, roughly 30 years ago. And the first one was in New York. It was a New York Eats tour. And they did a Chinatown tour, a number of them. They're the first company that I know of. Again, somebody may have had a lone tour in Bulgaria that I don't know about, but there's always been winery tours and things that are adjacent. But that was the first sort of five-stop set the pattern food tour. And so I knew certainly what a food tour was. I'd taken a Chinatown one, and I was new in Germany. And I had written some articles for Huffington Post and I think Omni Media about food and food in Berlin, particularly. And my phone rings. I'm responding to ads all over the place looking for a job. And suddenly it's someone from Secret Food Tours. And he was shocked that, I had executive chef background. I'd owned restaurants in New York. I'd owned the country club in New Orleans. So I had a very different background. He was shocked that I would apply for this little job of Berlin city manager. And I said, well, I am too. I don't really want this job, but I want to learn this job and do something successful here in order that we can expand this company. This should be worldwide as a concept, not in four little dinky European cities. And he goes, oh, well, we're talking about it. We're thinking about it. 6 months after I started Berlin, I called the other partner, the sane one, Nico. And I said, let's do it. And he goes, well, we're thinking about it. And I said, San Francisco, New York, New Orleans, give them to me. I'll get them done. And he went to supervise me in San Francisco and ended up not being around at all. I designed the tour. We hired the city manager. They used city managers at the time. They no longer do that. And I made it really interesting and relevant to the city, looking for things like a burrito, the best burrito in San Francisco, meaning I tried about 25. Um,
Okay.
and it wasn't the place where they were invented, but burritos come from San Francisco, not Mexico. Well, Tangentially, they do, but the burrito as we know it today comes from San Francisco. And so I wanted the things that were San Francisco foods, and many of them were things people did not know came from San Francisco, like egg foo young.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Who knew?
It was the Chinese rail workers, end of the line, San Francisco, opening restaurants and trying to sort of mesh the cultures. So a lot of really interesting foods came from San Francisco, and everybody else that was doing food tours there was doing get a fortune cookie in Chinatown, really superficial looks. And I'm not superficial. So I wanted it to be a deeper dive and it was successful. New Orleans was a deeper dive uptown. The company was then sued by a company called New Orleans Secrets for trademark and copyright infringement. And they unfortunately agreed to move to another neighborhood, and it was never the same. We were never
Oh,
able to capture that magic again. New
yeah.
York, I got the most incredible city manager, and we sat down together and we worked in a bar over a grilled cheese and got a former history teacher, Bridget,
Oh,
incredible, incredible, Bridget Quisna, incredible guide, incredible historic knowledge. That was a point of pride. What it's That's not the same, I'm afraid. But that was how I got started, and then it was everywhere after that. Hong Kong, okay, Istanbul, okay. Oh, I'm going to Australia, and from Australia to Boston again. Okay. It
wow.
was brutal 4+ years of travel.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But just to combine all those things that make it more, because I did take a what I would consider an enjoyable food tour in Charleston, and just the way they combined some history, the foods, to understand a little bit how it ties in. Otherwise, other food tours, yeah, they're just taking you place to place, and it's too superficial, for those that like us.
There's a lot of superficial food tours, and we're going to talk about that. Um, One of the people I met was very pivotal in my life, and that was Chef PJ Hayes, who's got Le Petit Moulin in Paris. I worked with him at Secret Food Tours and took his tour, which is why I wanted to work with the company, because his tour was a step above. Um, and many are not.
Yeah.
So
And I
I
don't know
won't
if
trash
that's
anybody here, but
no, 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 but it is. And I think it goes back to why I started my podcast, is essentially to expose people to the small mom and pops, not just these like run into a city, check off some boxes and leave. That to me is
no.
not that's not travel to me. And I fear, like I said, I think it goes back to starting photography before Instagram, let's say. I mean, once Instagram came along, it's like some of these idyllic places now are just people running, getting off the bus and literally snapping a photo and leaving, and not understanding like why is it like this, or it really, you know diving in.
Superficial.
Yep.
Yeah, we've gone more superficial. So I'm working with a company that's going to change course and make it less superficial. I never thought I would go back into food tourism after working with, three of the
Yeah.
majors, but here I am.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to me a little bit about Berlin. You're residing in Berlin now. As an American, I don't know what the viewpoint is, but I live in the United States, and for most of us, I don't know, Berlin doesn't pop up high on one of those places to visit. Uh, but I think there's a lot more there, and I think that again goes back to optics. We're advertised beautiful places in Paris and Italy maybe, and Germany kind of is a hidden, to me it's a hidden gem. I went to Germany in autumn one year with my father, loved it, but I was going to, got a map out and found these little hidden places, but did not explore
Yeah.
Berlin, to be honest. So I'd like to hear about Berlin.
Well, it came about, Germany would have been the last place on my list also.
Oh,
Not because of the propaganda, but because it always seemed cold. It's cold, it's remote, it's this, it's that. I was wrong. A distant relative invited me to come stay for a while. I was really disillusioned with the way the US was going. And that was 10 years ago before Trump. I was scared of a lot of candidates, not just Trump.
Yeah.
And I really thought the US was going in the wrong direction every time, consistently, and had been since Reagan. And I wanted to get out. And so one of my distant relatives invited me to stay with her for 2 weeks in Berlin. And it just jived. And it's not for everybody,
Right,
but
right.
Germans are very blunt people. They are direct.
Yes.
And I like that because I got very tired of the American subterfuge or the Minnesota nice, which is where my mother lives, where everything is always fine to your face and then they talk about you behind your back. In
Yeah.
Germany, they tell you to your face, your TV was too loud last night. I don't have a TV, so they can't tell me that, but you know, they don't pretend, and I love the lack of pretense.
Yeah, I agree. I know that growing up, my German family is very much they don't talk much. They're very quiet. If they do talk, it's very yes, it's very direct. There's no, being nice about stuff. Why are you wearing that shirt? Or you're late or, yes, very, very much direct.
Well, I wasn't going to wear this. I had another shirt on that was a little bit dressy. And my neighbor came by to pick up a package and she goes, Was ist das? Looking at me a little bit dressed up. And I said, for a podcast. And she goes, Nah.
Oh, really?
You just look and I said, Why? She goes, It's not you. You are always wearing red. You like the color.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
not show up in black. It's wrong. So I pulled this on.
Yay. Okay, good. Well, we'll thank her for that. So Berlin, tell me about the city a little bit. Places, the food culture. I mean, again, I
Well,
think
the food culture is both wonderful and terrible. Berlin is a great city to live in because after World War II, for obvious reasons, they had to rebuild the entire infrastructure. So we have possibly the best transit in the world. We have the M-Bahn, which are like a cable car that run everywhere. We have buses, which I hate, but little old ladies love. We have the subway, the U-Bahn. We have the S-Bahn, which is the elevated rail track. There's nowhere in this city, the largest capital in Europe, where I can't be in 30 minutes
oh
at the
wow.
most. It is the fastest, best transportation you could even ask for. Great healthcare, the best healthcare I've ever experienced in my life. Um, what else? Food culture? Well, German food is not the best on earth. What people think of when they think of German food is Munchen, and that's Bavarian cuisine. And there's some
Mm.
great things that have come from Bavaria. From Berlin, we got currywurst. I'm not a fan. Um, Currywurst, Flammkuchen, kebab. So the restaurant scene is not exciting unless you go with ethnic restaurants, and then it's interesting. But because we are in the center of Europe, and we get things from Spain, we get things from France, we get things from Poland. We, I cook. To go out shopping is the greatest pleasure on earth because I can find everything
Oh
that I
wow.
want and create anything that I want.
And probably a lot of fresh produce, I imagine. The markets
I
are
go to the Turkish Mark on Maybach Fair Street on Tuesday and Friday, where you have stall after stall after stall after stall after stall after stall of the best produce you can shake a stick at, and a lot of it's organic.
oh wow. Yeah, that is something I do admire. I mean, we do know that Europe is a bit more strict about what goes into the foods that even are sold on the shelves. Don't even get me
Bit more
started.
strict. We ban, what is it, 745 additives and chemicals you can put in your food in the
Wow.
US. I mean, everything from dyes to pesticides, yeah. And we were a little bit behind the curve with glyphosate. Italy got it in that game earlier, and Italy, as you probably know, has just outlawed fake meat.
Yes.
You want to sell meat, it's meat. You want to sell something else, it's something else. You cannot you cannot call it meat. You cannot call it a burger.
Yeah. Well, call it what it is. Talk
Just
to
talk, yeah, truth in advertising. Wouldn't you love to see more of that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what's I really frustrating for me as a consumer in the United States. And you know, this all the food reports. I mean, anything can be slanted to first, drinking coffee is good, drinking coffee is bad, all the breakfast cereals for years have had who knows what in that, and that's what we're supposed to eat. It's
No, you should never eat breakfast cereal. The problem in the US is that everything is for sale, including science. And so you make the right donation to the right university, you tell them what results you need in your study, and you will get those results whether or not they were true, because they will skew the study to give you what they need to give you to ensure future funding. That's the bottom line. So
yeah.
that's why doctors used to advertise cigarettes on television, because the science had been purchased. Science is still being purchased. And that is an unfortunate reality of the US. Pfizer owns all of the news networks. So the things we're reading about the Pfizer vaccine here, you'll never see on your nightly news.
Mm, yeah.
You'll never see.
Yeah, you just won't. And you really have to look out for your own, the whole idea of quote organic versus, they still have to spray those vegetables with something probably, and we don't
Oh,
know.
do they ever? I mean, what you call organic has so much crap on it. Here's biodynamic in France. I visited a biodynamic winery in France. Every morning, the farmer of the grapes lets the ducks out, and the ducks go and they eat the bugs because that's what ducks do. And they're
Right.
eating all of the insects that are surrounding the grapes. In order to keep the grasses trimmed, they let the goats out, and they have goat butts to prevent the goats from, you know,
Right, right.
getting up there and
Yeah.
eating the grapes. But they eat all the weeds and the grasses that are growing around. And then they make goat cheese from the milk from the mothers. And then in the fall, they unfortunately slaughter most of the ducks. They end up in grocery stores. And then they start the whole process over again in the spring, just keeping some goat cheese going during the winter. And that is true biodynamic farming. And they plant with the seasons of the moon. They don't
Wow.
spray anything with anything ever. If they have too many aphids for the ducks to get a hold of, they'll release ladybugs who also eat aphids. It's completely natural.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is
And
just revolutionary to
there's
some
a
of us.
glass of it.
Yes, I wish I could be tasting it. I'm sure I would just, it's the same thing with like chocolate. You mentioned Belgium and some of these places. It's like you walk down the street, you really smell the chocolate. You never walk into any chocolate shop in the United States, basically, and smell the chocolate. It's meant to sit on the shelf forever.
Right. Well, it's loaded with preservative.
So you mentioned Budapest as a repeat destination, and I've not
Oh,
visited Budapest. It's actually on my summer. I'm headed there in a few weeks. So tell me about Budapest.
I was in Budapest in 1989 on October 10th when the Berlin Wall fell in Berlin. And I was in Budapest. I had come to Eastern Europe to bring some antibiotics for someone who had pneumonia, and they couldn't get antibiotics because Reagan had sanctioned Eastern
Wow.
Europe. When they talk about sanctions, always realize what they're saying is people will die for lack of care. That's what sanctions mean. And the politicians never suffer. They get things on the black market. Um, so I had taken the train into Budapest, and I was just kind of wandering around, and I heard screaming and yelling, and a party begins by the river. I'm young, very young, actually incredibly young now that I think of it. I don't know if it was legal for me to drink, but I know that I did. And no one spoke English. It took me a long time to figure out what was going on. And I finally met this guy named Gabor who had learned some English. He'd had a tutor, and he'd also studied when he could get copies of films and things like that. And I ended up staying with him because I had nowhere I didn't just showed up and this happened.
Wow.
So I'm in the middle of the biggest party because even though the Soviets had left Budapest on August 16th, until it was over in Berlin, they didn't believe it was over. They kept thinking it will come back.
Right.
Uh, it's not really over. So they were still going about their business and using the ruble and trying to be careful just in case. And then they realized, okay, the oppressors are gone. We're no longer occupied. Berlin was the last holdout. So the party began for real. And I had a great time. And I really fell in love with the city and its people because no common language, but people just were taking care of each other. There
Wow.
was an economy of sharing in those early days because they had no currency worth anything. I had dollars and Deutschmarks, so I had some worthwhile currency for them. And so they shared. And stores gave away what they had. They put it out on the street for people who needed food, and no one was being greedy. It was probably the closest thing to utopia that society has ever experienced for a brief time.
Right.
And I was there for about a week. I'm still friends with Gabor. Now we both hit the mid-century point, but we've stayed friends forever.
Oh my
And
God.
so that's how I fell in love with Budapest. But it has an incredible culinary tradition. Everyone knows about the goulash soup, the beef soup with the paprika, but they make so many incredible soups. Oh my God, in heaven, including a sour cherry soup that is like nothing you will ever taste. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well, this is
a
helping me.
field with tarragon. I mean, the culture, cuisine wise, Budapest is extraordinary.
Well, then I must find a food tour there, huh? I'll have to see.
It's gonna be tough because that's one city where most of them do the superficial thing. Here
Okay.
is a taste of goulash soup. Here is a taste of, this fried dough thing. I'm not even remembering the name that they put sour cream on, and they don't even tell you the story behind it because if they tell you the story behind it, you realize what you're eating is a fast food fraud and
Okay.
not what it really was, which was a hearth bread that was topped. Now it's a deep fried snack. It's not very good. It's kind of shitty. It's pumped out 200 an hour, you
Yeah.
know. And the deep fried version came from an American who wanted to speed up the processing. So there's no great food tours in Budapest right now that I know of.
Okay. Well, that's good to see. This is good information. So, what would be some tips then to find some mom and pop local restaurants or small eateries? Do you have tips on that?
Yes, go into the wine bars and the wine stores
Okay.
because the wine purveyors are very close with the restaurateurs and they know the restaurant that has been very careful about pairing the right wine, and Hungarian wines are incredible. The right wine with the right food, they'll tell you, no, go here, go here, go here. They'll write down addresses.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that's how you can find some great things in Budapest. There's also a place that's got a French name called Salt and Poivre or Salt and Pepper, and you can even type it in as salt and pepper. And they do the really old-fashioned goose liver and onions.
Hmm.
They have it on the menu with apples, but you can ask for the old version, the goose liver with the onions. And it's extraordinary. It's just so good. Goose liver used to be a very common daily thing. It's become more rare as time goes on, but there's still places that do it the way it should be done. And you'll
Oh,
go, oh
oh,
my.
I'm excited that you shared that because my dad, ever since growing up, he's been a liver and onions fan, and I was kind of like, not my thing, but yeah, to take him something like that. I mean, it's some of those food experiences that really solidify your travel experience. Like we remember where we had a great slice of blueberry pie in Maine that somebody went out and picked the blueberries or whatnot. These things stick with us.
Oh yeah, they do. Food is so evocative. I mean, I can remember the first party at my Aunt Claire's, and I was probably 4 years old, but I can tell you exactly what she served, all the way down to the baked Alaska, which was, to me, this little kid, extraordinary to
Yeah.
see.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, that's amazing. So, what are some of your other favorite cities since you've been to so many?
Well, food-wise, I think Hong Kong is one of the best eating cities on the planet. Um, you can walk down Hong Kong as a street and get lotus smoked duck, beef brisket soup, fried soup dumplings, not just the boiled type that you can get in some eateries in the US, but they fry the bottom of the soup dumpling in these big cast iron things. So you have this crisp, this soft, this broth. It's a texture and taste sensation. The dim sum in Hong Kong is the best dim sum I have ever had in my entire life, anywhere on earth.
Wow.
Um, and I was with Natalia, and we decided to go walking in one. I like to walk in neighborhoods that everyone says don't go to,
Yeah.
and we did. We went walking in a neighborhood they said not to go to. There were a lot of prostitutes, but there was a little stand that had what smelled like amazing street food. And Natalia is game. She's a traveler like me. And she said, I said, you want to go? Let's go. Plastic chairs, plastic tables on the sidewalk. And I couldn't read anything on the menu or speak any of the language. So I went into the kitchen with the chef and pointed to what we wanted.
Right.
And he understood. And then he would point to things like with the scallops. Do you want lemongrass? Yes, lemongrass. How about rice noodle? Yeah, rice noodle. Garlic? Oh, definitely. And he then prepared the food for us. One of the best meals I've had in my entire life, anywhere on earth. And when I translated what the cost was, it was about €1.50.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That that is an experience. And that's why sometimes trusting or asking the locals and finding the locals that will actually tell you the truth or share where they
Yeah, and not all locals will tell you the truth. So just don't ask everyone. Ask people who are in the business. If you have a great meal, ask at that restaurant. Really try to get trusted sources because I love TripAdvisor and it's great for tourism. You can find things on it, but Americans go crazy for things that Europeans and locals do not.
Yes. That
I
is
mean,
so
Americans
true.
will applaud the big portion sizes somewhere because they're used to big portions, and you have to really keep an eye out because there are some really grotesque tourist traps in Paris that on TripAdvisor are 10,000 stars because Americans like the fact that they cater to them. All the waiters spoke English. The plates were enormous. I couldn't even finish all of my blah, 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 blah. And that is what they want. So they're happy about that. And I know by reading reviews very savvily, stay away.
Yeah, I was just going to say those are some key words to stay away from. You want the place where people don't 100% speak English and cater to you and large portions to me is not I took some cooking classes in college. It's been years, but I realized the smaller the portions and the way the pairings of the taste on your palate, oh my gosh, you could feel satiated with a lot less quantity. It's not about quantity.
No, and in because our food is nutritionally more dense here because we're not growing it with 10,000 chemicals and steroids on a farm, corporate farm, you're satisfied with less. I eat much smaller meals since I made the move because I don't feel hungry.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with a little bit. Tonight I've got about this much pork belly and a big pile of cabbage with some rice, and that'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So, are there other ways that we can avoid just getting on a bus and checking off the boxes for travelers that aren't, they're not as
Well,
savvy?
avoid restaurants that are near tourist highlights because almost universally they're going to be tourist traps. Avoid restaurants where there's a beautiful young person standing outside that speaks every language who wants to bring you in and show you their amazing food. Avoid any restaurant that says authentic Hungarian cuisine, pizza and burgers, because
Oh,
if they do too much, they won't do anything well. Look for the little unassuming places that aren't trying to grab your attention. If they're trying to grab your attention, they're trying to grab the attention of the tourists. Don't let them. Be the person that says, no, I'm going to go into that little place. Nobody's standing outside. There's no menu beckoning me. It looks like life. And then you go in and you go, oh, okay, this was a meal. There's a place in Paris called Lulu. And I had passed it many times walking to, I lived in Paris for about 6 months the entire winter. And I passed it walking to work all the time. And I never stopped in because it was to and from. I recently had a lunch there and was blown away by not just the food, but the service. I was babysitting a dog. They immediately brought the dog a bowl of water. Um, it was just all of these wonderful little things, and it was probably the best breakfast I'd had in ages.
wow. That
It was
that
a
says a lot.
gorgeous mashed avocado in a ring, topped with soft, creamy scrambled eggs, feta cheese, olives, a few toasted breadcrumbs. Oh my God, served with, of course, baguette because it's the law.
Right. Yeah, Paris has some interesting things in regards to food. I recall. I've been there once.
I mean, there are specific laws around the production of the baguette, and you can't vary, or you cannot call it baguette d'ancienne or baguette tradition. You you can't. So it's only a baguette if you do this. Sourdough starter, flour, water, salt in these proportions. And then the skill of the baker can take it next level. I've had some baguette where you go, oh my God, just the bread is so good.
Yeah, isn't that it's amazing how something like just the simple combination of ingredients, then the
Yeah,
care or whatever the baker,
it's time.
and a lot of that is taking the time, slowing down, not rushing. I think that's a big part of travel is to really get a deeper experience instead of, I see some of these itineraries that people take and I'm
Oh,
like, I could just have like, you're not gonna experience any of those cities. You're gonna be in and out. You're not gonna remember
yeah.
it when you got home.
A lot of Americans, I'll see these itineraries online and they say first day Paris, then London, then Rome, then Athens, then and I write to them and I say, people, this is how much time you're going to spend going to and from the airport in the city. This is how much time you're going to spend on a flight. That's not a day in Athens.
No.
That's a day traveling. So you don't have a day in Athens because you leave the next day for Thessaloniki. You have no time in Athens. You have about 5 hours in Athens when you wake up in the morning. It will not work. Do not try to go to 9 cities in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah,
And they
exactly.
still do it. And they post on Instas if they're having the best time and they carry far too much luggage. So their Insta photos will all have different outfits. And they just race through getting photos. That's not a vacation. That's an unpleasant, to me, we torture.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
I would sit with friends in Paris for 6 hours having wine and nibbling on things and with nowhere to go. And that is the best life you can ask for.
Oh,
I
that
think that's
is.
part of why I love Paris and keep returning. When you slow down in Paris, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. There's so many layers to Paris. There's so many streets to explore. Oh my goodness. You could spend.
Just take a walk, you know? I have Milo when I'm in Paris. That is my friend Jasmine's dog. And so I take Milo everywhere with me. And so, we're like a little couple. People greet us because they know Milo. She doesn't run around with him like I do. So everyone thinks Milo is mine, which is fine. I'm
Yeah,
happy to
yeah,
be
you're
associated.
like, that's okay. Oh, that's fabulous. So
He's adorable.
what places have you not visited that are on your wish list?
Many countries in Africa are. I've been to Morocco and I've been to Ethiopia and certainly Egypt. But the rest of Africa I haven't seen, including South Africa, and I would love to go. Egypt, incredible food place. Oh my God. But don't go to Cairo, it will make you insane. Cairo is like New York City with 100,000 times the people on steroids 24/7.
Oh, wow.
Cairo is not fun. But if you go to Hurghada or Alexandria, oh my
I was in Alexandria. It's interesting you mentioned that. Recently, I did. My father really wanted to go to Egypt, and I did too. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. But we did go in a group. So again, I knew going in, like, okay, I'm just getting a sample. But I would go back to Alexandria in a heartbeat. We were only there one night, and that was, of course, not enough. But the food, the three places we ate at, the fish was so fresh. The Mediterranean, I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is some of the best seafood I've ever had in my entire life was in Alexandria. And, and I look forward to going back. Hurghada, where I didn't expect much. I went to Hurghada to help a resort with a wine list because they were Muslim and of course don't drink, and I'm
Right.
more than happy to.
Yeah.
Um, and the Egyptian wine is terrible, but I arranged drop shipments of good wine that would pair with their menu and ended up loving the resort, loving the people, and loving Hurghada. where I thought it was just a tourist destination. I had low expectations, but I went into the old city, the
Oh,
former
wow.
fishing village, and I had incredible food. And I played, kick the rock with a group of kids that were playing on the street. I still have a bruise on my toe. It's almost healed.
Okay.
Uh, that nail grows so slowly when it's bruised. I don't care. I had the best time playing with kids, and then mama would take me and show me where to eat or where to buy bread,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. And again, no language in common, but I had the time of my life. You have to be fearless when you travel.
Yes.
If you're the guy that's always afraid and looking and hands in your pocket, I don't carry my phone everywhere. And I would carry a just not a wallet, just a small amount of cash. If I were pickpocketed, I knew how to get home. But never happened.
Yeah. And I think that I love that you mentioned the idea of being fearless, dropping your expectations and sometimes and trusting, if someone a local says, "Hey, go down that alley and see that little eat at that little place with the plastic table and plastic chairs, go and do it and be
Do
open."
it.
I just
The
cannot.
open.
Yeah, I cannot
Yeah,
say that enough. I mean, when I was in Egypt too, I was in this mosque, and I kind of wandered around off away from the group and was taking, some time to like kind of get a feeling of the place away from the crowd. And these two women came up. They just wanted to hug me and just try to chat with me, and it was so moving how kind and happy they were. I mean, this happiness. Here they were dressed in probably who knows what that they've owned forever. And it was just moving, very moving.
I'll tell you one of my favorite travel stories. I had been in Budapest about 20 years between my first and my second trips. And on my second trip, I was walking down a street. I wasn't even aware that I had been on the street before, but clearly I had. And I hear a voice behind me, Midikau, Midikau. I'm going, Midikau? What is a Midikau? And then I realized he's saying Mr. Carl.
Oh,
And I turned around and there was this tall man, 26-year-old man saying, Midika, Hadit. And I said, oh, it's good to see you again. I had no idea who I was talking to. And he took me to his food stall. He took my hand and took me and showed me a picture. I had played ball with him for several hours
oh
when where his food stand was just a parking lot and his mother had a little stand there. And she took a picture, had it developed, kept it there, and he remembered me after 20 years because I played with him.
right.
Uh, uh, Apparently, I learned because he had some English at this point. He was the child of a single mother, and he never to have a man stop and play with him. To him was the most significant thing I could have done. And so when kids want to play now, I try to always say yes because you never know what impact you're having on someone else. He even remembered the spicy pork dish his mother had made for me. And he
Wow.
made it for me. And his version was, I think, better than hers. It was incredible. And we ended up having a really nice conversation. He learned English because of me.
Wow.
He wanted to be able to talk to me someday. He said he kept the picture because he was waiting for me. He knew I would return. And so I made a point of going to his stall every day that I could while I was there, just because of that connection.
That is so moving. That is amazing. And that's the power of taking time, making these connections. Oh my goodness.
And play with kids. Play with kids. I love to play. I like to
Yeah.
play with dogs and kids. Enjoy it. It's good for both of you. It's good for everyone's soul.
Oh, yeah. Super powerful. I agree. I think in America or some of these large cities, we just get in this mentality of like hustle, hustle, where's our next paycheck, da 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 da. And we
Oh,
don't,
I was there. I remember it.
yeah, exactly, right. And play, I think, is so important on so many levels. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Find something or go out in the neighborhood, see the kids, play with them, go to the park.
Yeah. Talk to people, go to a farmer's market, talk to the farmers. I've been to so many places where I've learned the language doesn't matter. I was injured in southern India, where everybody's afraid of everything, right?
Right. Yeah, I was gonna
I
say.
was riding a bicycle because I'm that kind of dummy, and I hit a rock, and the bicycle lurches forward, and those pedals you have that have the texture on
Yeah.
into my shin. The bleeding would not stop. My sock, my shoe, everything. I'm soaked with blood. I'm walked down the hill to one of those little villages that's made out of crap,
Yes.
from a garbage
Yeah.
dump, essentially. And everybody runs out to see. Someone comes running with a needle and thread and hands it to me. So with an upholsterer's needle and nylon thread, I stitched my leg up on a dirt road in southern India. And then it was packed in honey, which I now know is an incredible antibiotic, prevented infection. Clean rags were wrapped around it. And I was led to his shop. Someone took my bike, which was at the top of the kind of dump,
Right.
and my shoes and socks away from me. And I was given a highly alcoholic drink and placed on this guy repaired the furniture, so he had a lot of
Yeah.
things to sleep on, a very comfortable sofa type thing, where I stayed. And when I woke up, there were lots of people around me. Someone had taken the time to get the blood out of my shoe and my sock, because when
Wow.
you live in a place like that, you have to clean everything and keep it in repair.
Right.
And they were drying, and they fed me, and I had some dried fruits and nuts and things in my backpack to share. I stayed 3 days and went to a wedding in this village. No language in common. The groom had to ride in on a cardboard white horse, but they went through all of the wonderful rituals of the wedding. And they killed a goat, which is the first meat I'd seen in the time I was there, which apparently they only do for these festivities. And I had the time of my life, and a pair of borrowed pajamas with rhinestones sewed on them. I felt like Dolly Parton. Um, it was an incredible experience. And then when they felt I was well enough to travel, my shoes and socks were dry, and they had repaired my bicycle for me. And half the village walked me to the nearest train station, where I was given more hugs than I can count and kisses goodbye. Never had a word in common.
Wow. That is an amazing story. I
The less
mean,
people have, the more they will share. The more they have, the less they share.
if that happened in the United States, I can imagine you might have laid there for forever. They would have
Well,
people.
the Black Dahlia, her screams didn't attract anyone. No one even called the police. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I would have lived there forever.
I mean, there's stories every day that just, people just don't act here in the States. But there, I mean, the place that we as Americans would think, oh, you're never going to survive. I mean, these people just gathered you up and took you in. That's an
Yeah,
amazing story.
I've had many experiences in travel that can only be replicated by being fearless. You must be fearless. I'm naturally fearless. I mean, it's part of my physiology. I'm one of those wonderful, rare people who has something called Addison's. Do you know what it is?
No.
We don't produce cortisol, the fear hormone. We only produce adrenaline. So I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I don't experience physical fear. I understand taking precautions. Mentally, I know what fear is, but I don't experience it in my body the way you would.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. It's like you were built for a life then of fearless travel, of just going
Yeah, I
out
was
and
built for this.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
in a
feel like
way.
I was. And
Yeah.
and and it's still my greatest pleasure. Whether it's going to visit old friends in places I now know well, like Budapest, where I have Gabor and Peter, and or Paris, where I seem to know half the town by now, or to go, or Athens, where with Natalia and Panos and Thalia. It's great to have people wherever you go that you send a text, I'm coming, and there'll be dinner plans and concerts and this and that, and you just
Oh.
say yes to everything.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. So what's next for you? Do you have new projects?
Next. There's a project I avoided getting involved with. PJ, whom I worked with both at Secret Food Tours and Eating Europe, is in Paris, and Eating Europe fired him in
They
November of
fired
last year.
him.
They fired him. He was a big money maker for them, but they then took his reviews and put up a Montmartre food tour that is what I call sweet but superficial. We're going to taste an authentic French baguette. We're going to taste an authentic French macaron. We're going to taste an authentic French croissant. They put together a tasting tour, which is what Kenny had always wanted. He was more comfortable with the five-stop tasting tour than an immersive experience, which is what PJ offered. And PJ and Chef Tris got together and wanted someone to help them, and I resisted, and they got involved with a chef I know from New Orleans who's become their CEO, and he contacted me for help, and I resisted and resisted because I'm doing event management with Clandestine in Berlin and elsewhere. We create these wonderful events for people, everything from a pizza making class with a wood burning
Oh,
oven to, little movie nights to big productions for corporations. And I love event management. I'm really good at it. I know all the details that go into it. And I thought, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I got involved because the way it was presented to me was you can go anywhere you want in the world and you can work. We will give Chef Karl's tour where you want to be. And I thought, ooh, not spending winter in Berlin.
right.
Spain looks good. So that's what sold me on it. So what I'm going to be doing is their social media, and their blog. I'll be writing about travel for their blog. That will be my initial. I won't be involved in the operations or a lot of other things, but I'll be promoting the company and working on the blog. So, and I'm
So
okay
it's
with that.
it's called
That's the place.
clandestine. How are we going to find the blog?
Clandestine travel is no, that's the event company
Oh,
that
okay.
I. This is called the Chef Tours,
Oh,
and they
wow.
will only work with chefs. No tour guides, meaning you will never get the sweet but superficial look. You will get a real tour. What Chef Tris is doing is phenomenal. So he is taking people to the Marché d'Alegre, which is one of the biggest real Parisian markets. It's a touch outside of the center, but it's where everyone goes to shop. It's my
Wow.
favorite market. I took Milo there many times. When I stay there, the apartment I stay at is on Diderot. I have a room there, and get to watch my dog and my kid.
Yeah.
So, and they'll do first breakfast with coffee that they get to being watched, roasted, and then ground in front of them. And the coffee is superb. So they have breakfast at the coffee shop. Then they go into the market for tasting. So they'll taste
Oh my
maybe the famous garlic sauce, some of the cheeses, and he has a budget and he'll work with the crowd. If they look at something and go, he'll calculate, all right, I can get 100 grams of that. Okay, that's in budget. Get them 100 grams. Let them taste it. So it's chef driven and tourist driven. If there's
God.
something that people go crazy for, it will be on the tour because he works with the budget within the market. And then they go to one of his friends' restaurants where he has been at the market that day and they see the produce that they've been looking at and the meats that they've been looking at turned into a meal for them at lunchtime with
Wow.
wine, of course. There's plenty of wine. It's Paris, it's the law. And that is not a cheap tour,
No.
but it's a tour that will offer incredible value for people who really want to know French cuisine. Tris has more passion about the food on offer than any man on earth. And he also used to work for Eating Europe. They prefer guides that read the script. And that's okay. That is their formula and their model, and they're welcome to that. I wish them no ill will. They have a couple of very good food tours, including one I designed for them in the footsteps of the French chef, the Julia Child tour in Paris.
Wow.
And that's a deep look into life after World War II in Paris. So, I wish them well, but this is something different. It's really a deep dive. And so if I do a tour this winter, it will probably be in Sevilla, which is a city in Spain that I'm absolutely in love with. And I think the food in Sevilla beats Malaga, beats Barcelona, beats Madrid, beats many places.
Oh, wow.
And the whole city looks like a wedding cake. It's the most beautiful city on earth. It's a small city, but it's incredible in every sense.
That's also somewhere I'm going, but I'm only getting, like I said, a taste of it. So now I'm gonna have to go back because I have not
So
been.
there's Chef PJ's tour in Paris. There's Chef Triss's tour in Paris. And then I'll be doing Sevilla this fall. It'll go on sale sometime over the summer. So there'll be plenty of announcements. And it can all be had at thecheftours.com. So you will be touring with a chef everywhere you go. Oh, there's also a cool feature they're offering that I will get in trouble if I forget to mention because I just learned about it today. You can hire a chef guide in about 10 different cities
Oh,
where you will pay for the guide and then you'll be charged an amount per day for the food. You say what you like, and that guide will then find the best of what you're looking for. So you can say, I'm vegetarian, and you're in Budapest. All right, what? And they'll make sure everything's vegetarian and it's going to be, and they'll do it and they'll pair wine with everything that you have at dinner time. So it's meals included, tourism not included, meaning that you're not running to museums with them. They are your guide for your food, and they will take you to places you've never been and give you personalized food tours every day of your trip, up to 3 days because you run out of material.
no,
So that's something.
that's fabulous though, because
We've got a bevy of chefs that
I
will are
think
willing to do
there
that.
are eager travelers that want something more and they don't always know where to find it or how to find it. And this fits that. And again, I think
Yeah,
the one thing COVID did do, if it hadn't happened to you previously in your life, similar to your personal experience or, personal experiences I've had of, no, tomorrow is not promised. If you want to
no,
travel, you got to do it today. And that time, you can't buy time. You can make all the money you want in the world, but you can't buy tomorrow. You can't promise you're going to be here tomorrow to do and experience and go. So,
no, you absolutely can. So I there's an organization I used to work with called Queen of Clubs. And they used to buy food tours from all the different companies that I worked with. But their guests were paying a premium for what they thought was a private tour, and they would get the typical tour.
mhm.
They weren't getting that extraordinary experience that they were looking for. Because there's a lot of layers to their pricing and other things. So I'm going to contact Queen of Clubs and say, hey guys, look at this, because this is what your guests are looking for. They're going to pay for it.
Oh yeah.
15% agency commission and no discounts, but we can offer you something superb. And I think they may go for it because they're constantly disappointed, especially in Paris, with everyone that they contract with because it's just superficial.
Yeah.
Croissant, croissant, baguette, and it's kind of cynical the way some of these companies are in that they offer the cheapest possible everything.
Yeah.
So they have a food cost of about 16, but charge, 130, 140 for the ticket. Whereas with the chef tours, the margins are razor tight. You are getting food and wine to rattle your nerves, and you are getting a chef with you for 5 to 7 hours. It's real. It's not superficial ever and under any circumstances. And so I like everything about the way this company is being formed.
Oh, I love this. This is excited. I'm excited to tell some travelers about it. So I'll
Yeah.
need to take a look at some of the cities where you'll be offering this to.
Right now, it's Paris, and then you can the private guides. I think, oh boy, I'm
Oh
going to get
yeah.
in trouble for not studying more. The private guides are available in Budapest, Athens, Berlin. That would be me. Paris, um, that I know of. There's
Right.
probably others, and sorry for not mentioning them,
No, no,
but
no.
you know,
There'll probably be
just
others, and I'll just stay in touch with you. And when travelers
yeah.
contact me,
Phone
I'll
call,
reach
email,
out.
whatever.
Yeah.
This is being moved slowly. They're not looking to take over the world. They're looking to do
No.
the best possible immersive looks that they can because it's all chefs, even doing the social media and the blog now.
Yeah.
Chef, everyone will be a chef that works with this company so that we all share the passion.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And that's the only way to do it. I mean, because otherwise, if the person doing the blog or the social media, they're not in the same headspace and understanding of everything that goes into being a chef and the curation of the food and the ingredients, all the things that a chef is. So that is super important. Oh, I
It
love
all
that.
starts with ingredients, always. And that's what's good about the Berlin food scene. Great ingredients are available and currywurst.
Wonderful. This has been fabulous, Carl. So, is there any last words of wisdom for our listeners on travel and food?
Don't plan an itinerary. Pick up a couple of tours and then allow yourself to experience life. You will have a much more successful trip. And you wanted me to plug my book, you said?
Yeah, yeah,
He
go
asks
for it.
eagerly.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear about the book because all the adventures
Oh,
you have, I don't know if that's what the book is about, but oh my goodness.
no, no, I wrote that book and nobody wanted to publish it. So I've got a book coming out in January 2025 called Filthy Blonde, which is about my early years working in Italy while dubbing movies for the mafia. Um, yeah, well, I did. I dubbed movies, all of those terrible things that went to Blockbuster with those funny sounding voices. Yeah, I did a lot of those. And that's coming out January 2025. But June 11th, 2024 is a work of fiction called It's Not Always Murder. And it is set in New Orleans, my food city in the US. And it's about a man who falls into being a private detective accidentally. He has to take advantage of the circumstances thrown at him in life. I won't give those away. And he becomes a private detective. He's not very good, as you'll see in his first case, because it takes him much longer than the reader to figure out who did it. And he's kind of clumsy in his execution, but he starts to get the hang of it. And then in the second half of the book, he chases down a missing girl in Paris.
Oh,
And it's post-war Paris. And because I'd done all the research on post-war Paris, I knew the restaurants, who was there, what they were serving, what was on the menu, how they got by with the rationing. I had all of that information already done. So it was easy for me to write about post-war Paris and the police commissioner and all of the things involved in that. And takes place in 1945. Um,
wow. How
the war,
interesting. What a fascinating work of fiction to like
and it's
bring
short.
out.
It's Pulp Fiction. So it's all story. It's none of this. Her hair was golden, like the sun, but brighter than, and none of this, none of these Dickensian, 15 pages of setting it up. This is it. This is what happened. This is where we're going. 122 pages, action filled with two cases in 122 pages. We
Where
edited it so that it's always action.
so where can we find the book?
Everywhere but Amazon.
Okay, great. I love that.
Barnes and Noble is going to be carrying it both in e and paper version. I made the decision, and it probably will cost me, I'm sure that it will, of not utilizing Amazon for either the paper or the ebook version because of their abhorrent labor practices. I have always boycotted Amazon personally, and I thought it would be really horrible of me to then use it as a way to make funds and generate sales. So, but the good thing about that is that Barnes and Noble tripled their print order when
Oh,
they
wow.
found out that I would not be on Amazon. So it'll be in all New York Barnes and Noble. It's going to be in all your stores, San Francisco, all your stores. I don't know throughout the country how many others, but I do know they ordered nicely in New York and San Francisco. So
Well, and I think if people go into their Barnes and Noble and ask for it, do you have a title?
it's not always murder.
Ooh, nice. All
And
right.
it is Pulp Fiction. I'd show you the cover, but that means I'd have to screen share, and that's technology I haven't learned how to do
No worries. No worries.
yet.
I'll put a link that though that listeners can go to Barnes and Noble, call their local Barnes and Noble because most Barnes and Noble too will order it in and it'll you can
Oh,
pick it
yeah.
up because it
It's
sounds
available
like
for
a
pre-order now.
I'm still a physical book person when I
I
can.
love books.
I do too.
I mean, look over here. All books.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Look over there. All books, all books, all books.
Oh, yes, yes. That's like me. There's like stacks of books here and there waiting to be read,
Yeah.
partially read, pages half open. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a mega reader. I constantly am reading. And I find sometimes the best sources of food history are certainly never on Wikipedia. That's error prone, but are in books where they just reference something,
Yeah.
like the bull's blood wine from Hungary. There's all these BS stories about how it got its name. And it was just a regular book of fiction that had an obscure reference that I chased down at a library where you actually do research and found out, oh my gosh, this is the truth. The Romans, or the not the Romans, the Etruscans used to go to the area in Bulgaria with these big barrels on the backs of, horse and donkey covered wagons to harvest the natural grapes in this part of what is now Hungary. And it was the communion wine for the Mithraics because they celebrated baptism in the blood of the bull, and their communion was the blood of the bull, therefore bull's blood. Additionally, a certain amount of it was allowed into the US during Prohibition because they said it was for religious purposes. It was Mithric communion wine.
Huh. Wow. What a
They
history.
weren't
What a
Mithraics, they were nightclub owners and bootleggers, but good for them.
right.
They
Yeah.
found the gap in the law and they brought it in. It's not the best wine that Hungary has to offer. They have incredible things from the Villainay region and from other parts of Hungary, but it's just got the most interesting story.
Well, I hope eventually you do go back and make a collection of all your travel adventures because
No, it's written. I can't get an agent or a
uh,
publisher interested.
that's crazy.
So I managed to include bits of it in other books, even in the murder book. We go through Paris as my mind saw it in 1945, as I was doing the research for Julia Child.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you so much, Carl. This has been
Sure.
a lot of fun to chat with you, and I hope to take one of your chef's tours or at least go to some of the places you've eaten. It's such amazing
Oh,
information
and
to
send
share.
me an email if you're going somewhere and you don't know the city because I keep copious notes, paper notes, yes, paper,
Yes.
uh, everywhere I travel to. And, some places close or change ownership, but if I've been there recently, I'll know because I can sniff out a good restaurant.
Yeah, definitely. Fabulous. Thank you again, Carl. And to our
You
listeners,
bet.
I'll have information on where you can find these chef's tours, the book that's coming out in June. It's so much excitement. And follow your blog, what you're writing too. I'm sure.
Well, the blog will be on the chef tours. It's not there yet. The website is only partially constructed, but the first tours are for sale. So you can book Chef Tris and Chef PJ now. Um, and we don't even have a TripAdvisor page yet. That's
Hey,
where it's at. When I say new, this is new, but that's okay.
no,
Uh,
that's totally okay. People will find it that want to find it.
well, people already are finding it. I mean, PJ's got a big tour this Thursday. He doesn't have a tour every day yet, but he's already booking tours. So if you're in Paris, you don't want to miss Chef PJ's tour. He's not like anyone else. You Google Chef PJ, he's the first result. You didn't even have to put Paris or food or tours.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Hmm.
something memorable for travelers, something that's
Yeah.
life changing.
Well, that's
Highly.
how they're finding him. They're just looking for him and they're going, oh, okay, he's here now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Again, thank you so much, Carl. This has been fabulous.
You bet. Have a wonderful evening, and I will send you those links.